I'm Jamie Durham, Brandon's proposer, and I'm important because I was JCR president last year, and this year I'm with culture. Now, I met Brandon on his first day of Freshers Week, where I immediately noticed that he is in fact American. Now, for those of you who haven't quite clocked on, there are quite a few telltale signs, most notably the fact that he speaks with an incredibly stupid accent, and the fact he does so unnecessarily loudly at all times. Now, despite both of these character flaws and my very, very best attempts to ignore him, he's become somewhat of a permanent fixture in my life. In his first year, Brandon was one of my assistant treasurers, where he helpfully assisted in filling in spreadsheets, writing reports, organising events, giving him a good insight of where the JCR's money is spent and exactly what a role in Exec entails. This year, he's taken on the unenviable role of line manager ball supervisor, and I really can't stress how big a job this is. It's absolutely massive. He's responsible for absolutely everything on the night. All of the ends, all of the decks, all of the acts, managing a team, as well as liaising with college staff, an impossible task if ever there was one. Not only this, but he's also taken on the role while a neurotic control freak is in charge. That's funny. Fortunately, there are very few people in college, or in fact the world, that I would trust this responsibility to, and Brandon is one of them. Not only has he taken on these two roles, but he's also does an archaeology degree, which he pays an absolute fortune for, despite having no real prospects. He also paid, oh no, I should like that. He's an international rep, which is in addition to prepping. He's on Duck Exec, he plays the lacrosse, by which I mean he's in the 13 or 3 teams. He's on Shift Exec, which he stresses is incredibly important. For his next challenge, and for reasons quite unknown to me, Brandon wants to be our senior man. It's a role quite unlike any other, and frankly, I can't think of anybody better to do it. His contagious enthusiasm, his wealth of experience, and his unnecessarily loud voice all make him absolutely perfect for the role. As such, I hope you all join me on something with most offences in tick next to Brandon's name.
What do you think of the weaknesses of this outgoing exec, and how would you look to resolve these weaknesses in next year's exec?
I'll try not to be too loud, Jamie. I apologise. Let's see. Overall, I think this last year's exec has been really good. I mean, I didn't have the same insights as I did into the exec in my freshers year. From what I've seen, everything's managed very well. The PACE renovations have gone fantastically. From what I've seen from PACE, it looks very good, and I tell that there's been a lot of progress this year. The only thing I can say, and I don't know if when I was in office I'd do any better because I don't know anything about how the really tasks went about that. Just kind of mainly making sure things are done on time. I know there's been quite a delay in days. And just making sure that everyone in the exec is held accountable to the roles.
As senior man, you represent the voice of the JCR, the Hatfield Capital Planning Project. What is this? And what is the next main capital project for Hatfield, and when will it take place?
The Hatfield Capital Planning Project is the group of people who are involved in renovations in college. Most recently, this was the PACE renovation. And over the following, I think it's going to be taking place in July 2017, is going to be the renovation of the Jevons building. So that will include the accommodation with all the stairs located in the Jevons building and the bar. So I'm sitting on there with, I believe it's Anthony Bash, Tim Burns, Michelle, maybe Trevor, and various people involved with the construction process.
What are the cost implications for the main points of your manifesto?
For cost implications, I mean, I did speak about bar renovations, and I spoke about Jevons renovations. So I mean, one of the big things I want to do is make sure that the bar is the best it can be, because too often I hear bad things about a bar from the colleges. Although I really like it, it obviously doesn't appeal to everyone. So I'd like to put as much funding as possible into making the bar the best place it can be and a proper statement of how great Hatfield is. Beyond that, I also make points of having free-for-hire entertainment and sports equipment. And that would obviously come out of a yearly budget. I know there are tennis rackets now, but I'd like to provide other sports equipment for use on the tennis courts, and perhaps a PS4 or Xbox One to be used in the common room. And I think everything else would be generally free on that list. It would just require a bit of work.
Hatfield College, Hatfield JCR is part of the DSO framework. I'm just linking this to Dan's question, which is that it's been nearly 6 years since Hatfield JCR voted on whether to remain part of the DSO framework. Do you think that being part of the framework is good for Hatfield JCR, and would you suggest putting forward a referendum in your year?
I think the DSO is very good. Moving to an independent charity has been done by a few colleges, I believe two. It's Chad's and John's, if I'm not mistaken. And it would just cost a lot of money setting up the insurance and setting up the health and safety policy. I think the DSO framework really outlines a good system for our finances, health and safety, and everything involved. So I definitely do change recommend. For now, I mean, if the JCR seeks to, or the university seeks to impose certain restrictions on the JCR, it's definitely something to consider in the future.
If elected to the position of senior man, you would take over on the last day of this term, what would be the first thing you'd look to change once you took control?
I mean, there's a lot of points mentioned in my manifesto. I think the first thing I would definitely do is kind of sit down with my future exec and see what they want to do. We want to work on a strategic plan for the entire year. Obviously, my main points on the Jevons renovation and on kind of the free prior equipment, that stuff that can be done until next year. Probably mainly would be to set up the website. I think the website's going to be crucial in the coming year because I know over the summer before I came, I searched the internet endlessly looking for what this college is about. I think if we have a website set up by the summer, I think it will greatly improve our freshers and how they perceive Hatfield.
A couple of scenario questions. As senior man, you represent Hatfield JCR across university committees. Whilst this is important, your time in office is limited and during the week is limited. So what would be your focus as senior man? Trying to improve the JCR experience from within the college or trying to make university-wide change for students?
From what I've seen thus far in my years at Hatfield, things on the university level take a very, very long time. However, things in the college take less time. And I think the main focus for senior man, although I represent the JCR to the university and related communities, I think really the best thing is to focus on us. Because that's what mainly I'm in charge, and that's the main thing that affects Hatfield students on a day-to-day basis. So improving things all around the college, such as the bar, such as the website, such as formals, that's going to be my main priority.
You were called into a meeting with a member of college management, and in the discussion you were repeatedly asked if you would agree to a change in the college policy which would affect the JCR. And I've been told that this is something which has been discussed by the previous exec and something which they have agreed to. You have no knowledge of this arrangement, but you're feeling pressure to make a decision there and then in that meeting. How would you react?
I think although it might not be perceived well by the college officers, I think the best approach to dealing with college officers and university people is to kind of step back and be logical about the whole thing and make sure you have all the information available. So I don't think there would be anything wrong in saying that, let me take this back to my exec, see what they think about it, and perhaps consult the previous senior man about what this actual arrangement was.
And just to final one for me, you'll be the only member of the exec who will live in next year if you're elected in, and that will be most likely making the first port of call to do with anything college-based. That could be from collecting parcels to just moving something which is in the way. So how will you handle this to make sure that you're not simply using up all your time running errands for everyone else?
Well, I do an archaeology degree, and it doesn't really take up that much time. So I would be around quite a bit, and I'm very happy to help with things, but I definitely want to emphasize to the future that although no one is living in it, you are elected and you have jobs within the college, and I think, I really want to emphasize you want to have your face around college, and you want to be there doing things on a day-to-day basis. And so I would definitely encourage other members to come in. I know JCR exec members this year are definitely around college, even though I'm living in it, it seems like every time I'm in college I see most of them around. I think this is definitely something to emphasize at the beginning of the year.
I'll just remind you of the last question. In your standing orders, you're expected to provide strategic direction for the JCR. I don't know what that means. But the question is, what is your vision for the JCR for the next 5 years?
This would mainly apply to things that were definitely out of my reach, but I think there's a lot of innovation that can be done. Hatfield's great at the moment, and I know we all love it, but the accommodation is a bit grim at times. But we're certainly working on that. So ensuring that the bar is as good as possible, ensuring that all the common rooms are as good as possible, ensuring that formals are still cheap and accessible, ensuring that there is a good perception of Hatfield to the rest of the university community, and ensuring that there's a good perception of Hatfield to the prospective students. We want to make Hatfield great. We want people who are living out now to be encouraged living in, and we want people to come into Hatfield. So So there's a number of ways you can confront this, but I mean, that would be set apart by the future exec.
Any questions from the floor or from us?
Hatfield has the lowest proportion of state-educated students in its JCR. What do you see the role of the JCR exec being in working with the college to ensure that the JCR is seen as an accessible option to applicants from all backgrounds?
This is definitely what some would perceive as a problem, and I do sympathise, and I think the best approach to this is kind of working with people during Freshers Week, and kind of work with members of other colleges to kind of eliminate this perception that Hatfield is, only accessible to, public school people and private school people, because there definitely are state school kids here who are perfectly fine and interact with everyone very well. I mean, I went to a very state school in America, and I mean, everything's been great. So yeah, mainly just improving the perception of Hatfield to the rest of the university, and I think that would, again, influence people who are prospective students when applying to Hatfield.
It's generally accepted one of the worst things about Hatfield is there's no mushrooms with brunch. What do you seek to change this? How do we go about doing it?
So if I can just repeat the question for the camera, it's generally accepted that the worst thing about Hatfield, or amongst the worst things, is the absence of mushrooms. The worst thing is the absence of mushrooms in brunch. How would you go about improving the situation?
If I'm not mistaken, aren't there already mushrooms?
You are mistaken.
I feel like I've heard something about that. I'm not really sure. I do like mushrooms. I have them about 3 times a week in mushroom soup form. They're very good. I mean, obviously, the start would be to work with Daryl and the catering staff, because I mean, mushrooms are a really big issue. And I think it can really be a driving factor towards applying to Hatfield, and people who are livers out might actually decide to live in if there are mushrooms available.
Any more questions? Yeah, is it my turn?
What's your view on the senior man title? It's been debated by a lot.
So, for the sake of the mic, what's your view on the senior man title?
Personally, I respect the tradition behind it. I do recognise claims that it might limit accessibility to the role. However, the Hatfield community has voted against it twice in the past 2 or 3 years, and I think for the moment it could definitely stay with us. However, if I am elected and somebody comes to me with a viable alternative, and if it's the time if the rest of the Hatfield community agrees with it, then I'm more than happy to put it forward.
Yeah.
You'll be, if you're elected to the role, you'll be one of the few colleges that has a senior or JCR president who's not a sabbatical full-time paid person. How do you think that will affect you when it's close to you in the other colleges?
So in your office, you'll be one of the only senior management JCR presidents who isn't sabbatical at the time. So how do you think this will affect the way that you do your role and interact with other college presidents?
I personally think the fact that Hatfield has a non-sabbatical senior man or JCR president is a fantastic thing. I really think that a senior man who is a student can really connect with students more, because, I mean, although the sabbatical officer would ultimately have not been a student for a year, I think that, you'd be more in tune with the actual desires and needs and wants of the wider student body, plus the people you'd be representing would either be in your year or the year below. And so I think you'd appear as much more approachable than if you were some paid university employee. And I mean, in my opinion, I'm more than happy to do it for free.
Yeah, Ben?
Rob's looking behind the strong legacy of advocating for lockable storage candidates in college. Do you have any strong opinions on this issue?
So Rob is maintaining his campaign for lockable storage cabinets in college. So the question was, would you continue this talk?
These are the ones that would go outside of the Exec everywhere. like in American high school. What are we talking about? Just like a few?
What's your stance on lockable storage cabinets?
For use. If they're for use by the rest of the JCR, I think it's a good idea, because having places to store things for formal and potentially for language as well would be very good for livers out, especially because you hear concerns with people coming into formals about where they put their clothes afterwards, because a lot of people want to go out. If you could rent these for a matter of hours, that'd be fantastic. For regular day-to-day JCR operations, dealing with the Exec, the Exec had more spaces it could put its possessions. I think that would definitely be good, which probably shouldn't be a problem after the pace renovations and the storage room opens back up.
Yeah, good.
I think it's not taken by factor, but what do you think the advantages of and how do you think that anonymous voting JCR meetings?
So what are your opinions of and how would you implement anonymous online voting at JCR meetings? At JCR meetings.
I think it's a fantastic idea. I know specifically on what we were just speaking about, the whole senior man vote, and I think definitely during votes like that, which are kind of sensitive to people, I think that could definitely improve kind of unbiased voting. I don't think people want to be perceived as voting for things. I mean, there's a lot of, I want to call it political pressure, but peer pressure in voting for a certain thing. In terms of how I implement it, I know during school you can have these little clickers that you use, and it shows who votes or not. So we could purchase one of those systems and perhaps see how much it was. And there's also a potential for online voting, which would incorporate people who actually didn't attend the JCR meeting, which is another matter entirely, I know.
We'll go to Alan.
Hatfield is really behind this tech, it's like a lot of people start sectors, heads of colleges, just wondering kind of what you want to do to change that. And just follow on, you mentioned something like that about dropping out of tech. I've not got anything to say.
So, sort of two-part question. So, Hatfield's very behind on its tech relative to other colleges. How would you address this? And also, if you could clarify the point on our manifesto about dropping tech hours.
I'll answer the first question first. The second question first, sorry. In terms of drop-in hours, that would mainly be during Freshers Week, because I know when I was prepping, I figured out how to fix somebody's Wi-Fi, and after that work got out, and I had like 20 people come to me to fix their computers, because setting during Wi-Fi is an absolute nightmare, and kind of transitioning all of your tech to university. So just having the tech team around during Freshers Week, or perhaps members of the FREP team, would definitely be an advantage. In terms of upgrading the tech, I know organising Light and Integral in particular, there's definitely there have been tech that's been lost. There's been tech that we just don't have and we have to rent it. So a big thing would be investments in that. But I think the main tech investment for this next year would be the website.
Yep. Okay.
And Casey, what's your thoughts on online voting for JCR?
What are your thoughts on online voting after JCR meetings?
I think it could work in several ways. Obviously you want people to make a fully educated decision, because I know I've gone to some JCR meetings and my opinion's been changed, especially on the senior man thing, because some good arguments have been put forth. I think it's definitely possible, but it would have to be with a video of the JCR meeting and kind of a more complete source of points that have been made and arguments that have been made, so people can make a fully educated decision on each thing. But I think it's something to look into, especially if we do make a new website, it might have the capability to do this.
Are we done? Left George.
How will you, in your turn, manage the change of college roster if it happens, and the change in college politics that will occur at that time?
So during your time in office, how will you manage the change in monster if that occurs, and the change in college politics that might accompany it?
Yeah, I mean, a change in masters is a massive deal. I mean, it's obviously something Hatfield hasn't experienced in nearly 2 decades. And I personally have no idea what that would be like. I imagine that, a complete restructuring of the college officer roles. I mean, I think the new master coming in would have a series of political agendas that he would try to put in place, and I think it'd be good, because I think he'd kind of develop his position in the college, and I could assist him with that. We could kind of reevaluate how the JCR sits within the wider college political spectrum.
Excellent. I'd now like to invite you to let us know in 1 minute or less why we should vote for you.
I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out and staying here until this late hour. The role of senior man is a really difficult one. It requires loads of work and a complete commitment to college. But I really do think I'm a suitable candidate for this role. I mean, firstly, my experience, it really speaks for itself. I spent a lot of time in college this year, probably too much time working on various committees throughout it. Through this, I've been both a leader and a team member. I've worked with students, staff, college officers, pretty much everyone, including the exec. And this has gained certain relationships that I think would be useful in being senior man. Secondly, I think I'm very friendly and approachable. I mean, you'd be hard-pressed to find me without a smile on my face. I think this is a very good trait of a potential leader. Also, I think I'd be fair. I'd represent the interests of the JCR, even if I didn't agree with them, and make decisions accordingly. I think the website would be massive, both for bringing in new students and for supporting those who are already here. And I really do think student input into Jevon's renovations would make Hatfield fantastic. I think I could successfully and efficiently lead Hatfield into the future, and that is why you should vote for me. Thank you.